You've seen all the public polling, people concerned about age. How does the president plan to convince the American people over the next year that 80 is not too old for someone who's running for re-election?
80 is the new 40. Didn't you hear? I don't even understand that question. I don't understand your question. You have to say more. A year in this role, there's been a couple of things that has made me incredibly proud. Many things that made me incredibly proud to be at that podium during this historic moment. Again, this is a historic administration. I'm a historic figure, and I certainly walk in history every day. But this is also a historic making administration because of this president.
I am a golden god!
People in this building, you tell me all the time, and Ron Klain, the former chief of staff, used to say to me, "You have the hardest job in this building, the hardest job." He's like, "Don't ever forget that," and we know that. I will tell you this, the president is the best communicator that we have in the White House. And you've heard us say this over and over again. This is a president that respects the rule of law. This is the president that wants to make sure and has proven that to be in his actions, to make sure that the Department of Justice is truly independent. And, and he said that during the campaign. He's restoring certainly the integrity of the Department of Justice.
The president appeared to look around the room for an audience member, a member of Congress who passed away last month. He seemed to indicate she might be in the room. What happened there?
So the president was, as you all know, you guys were watching today's event, a very important event on food insecurity. The president was naming the congressional champions on this issue and was acknowledging her incredible work.
And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie. Are you here? Where's Jackie? I didn't think she was going to be here.
Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie? She must not be here.
No, I totally understand. I just explained she was on top of mind.
Quick follow-up, because I'm trying to get my head around the response. If the late Congresswoman was top of mind for the president and her family was expected to be here, and that's what he was thinking about, why was he looking for her? I'm not trying to be snarky here.
No, I mean, and again, I think people can understand. I think the American people out there who, watch the briefing from time to time, maybe at this moment, will understand when someone is at top of mind.
I have John Lennon top of mind just about every day, but I'm not looking around for him anywhere.
When you sign a bill for John Lennon as president, then we can have this conversation.
You talk about putting a race, how I want to do it, how I so compose, because I have to get to the game from it. I have to. We are so stereotyped.
She's asking about the origin of COVID.
I hear the question.
And Dr. Fauci is the best person to answer that question.
I hear your question, but we're not doing this the way you want it.
This is the disrespectful. It is. I'm done. Simon, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with you right now.
So what's the difference between President Trump not doing anything while the Capitol was being attacked and President Biden not doing anything while protesters, while the Supreme Court justices were under attack?
To say that there is no difference, that is just unbelievably wrong.
So is he concerned that Supreme Court justice
I'm moving on. You
don't give us questions.
Okay. I'm trying to answer your question. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. I just tried. You wouldn't let me. Go ahead.
No, but can
I just tried, and you would not let me, sir. So your colleague is going to ask a question. Go ahead.
Ask you a question.
No, I literally just tried to answer your question. You shut me down. So now your colleague is going to.
Let me ask the question first before you answer.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
The thing about me that's so impressive is how infrequently I mention all of my successes.
I'm a historic figure.
I'm probably the most humble person that I know.
Let me just touch on the March numbers for a second. As you just stated, look, what we believe is our border enforcement measures and what we have seen continue to limit unlawful immigration. So that is important to note.
Sure, buddy.
So you've heard the president share his father saying, "Don't tell me what you value. Show me your budget, and I will, that will show us, you, the American people, what you value." He has tools that he's used to make sure that we do this. We actually deal with the immigration system in a humane way.
in a way that is that actually deals with what we're seeing at the border, and that's why you've seen the parolee program be so successful. It has when it comes to illegal migration, you've seen it come down by more than 90%, and that's because of the actions that this president has taken.
U.S. border officials now reporting that there has been a spike in the number of migrants crossing the border.
Well, we're looking at some of the new data and numbers that are coming out, and we're learning that U.S. border officials apprehending those trying to cross the border illegally is up 25% in the month of March.
There's no doubt of the independence of NPR's journalists.
America's far right is picking up on Russia's false narratives, and at least one of these stories is gaining a more mainstream audience.
So, why have Democrats left Texas? Well, they wanted to stop voting restriction bills from passing the state legislature, and leaving was one way of depriving Republicans of the necessary number of bodies needed to call a vote. The bills are among several Republican efforts to make it harder to vote.
And it has been, if you've ever been on the receiving end of their questions, you know this.
Have a seat. Thank you. Thank you very much. All righty.
Is there some way in which that election just passed has liberated you?
You know that they have their independence in journalism. NPR journalists work diligently to hold public officials accountable and inform the American people. The hard-hitting independence nature of their coverage speaks for itself.
So diet culture is this overarching system of beliefs and values that's really endemic to Western culture at this point in history.
So there was an anti-diet dietitian. Then, when we kept listening, we were introduced to a fitness expert who hates fitness. Listen.
I was, and still am in a lot of ways, triggered by hearing the word fitness, because even before you kind of get engrossed in fitness culture, you are inundated into diet culture and some of the toxic messages.
He was talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he mentioned a mother that had lost 2 of her sons to fentanyl. He said the interesting thing is that the fentanyl they took came during the last administration, and then he seemed to laugh.
She was very specific recently, saying that a poor mother who lost 2 kids to fentanyl, that I killed her sons. Well, the interesting thing is that fentanyl they took came during the last administration.
The mother's demanding an apology, and I'm wondering if he regretted how that came out.
So, I want to be very careful here, because this involves a mom, as you just stated, who lost 2 sons. And when it comes to this president, I believe the American people knows who he is fundamentally, because he's been around for some time, and they have watched him go through grief. They have watched him deal with really personal loss. And so this is a president that understands that. He expressed sympathy for her last night. And his heart goes out to any person who has to go through that type of trauma, that type of hurt. I will say his words are being mischaracterized by someone who is regularly discredited for things that she says that are really conspiracy theories, and those lies are being parroted by a certain network, let's be very clear. Let me take on the drug part here, because since you brought this up, because of the work that this president has done, because of what we've done specifically on fentanyl at the border, it's at historic lows, historic levels. Under threat of having their licenses revoked, gay teachers have been forced to take down pictures of their spouses from their desks.
It's totally made up.
And censor their classroom materials. Censoring our classes is not how public education is supposed to work in a free country. Conservative politicians love to complain about the so-called cancel culture, all while threatening teachers with losing their jobs if they teach something that the MAGA extremists don't agree with. What the president has been able to do in his first 2 years of this administration is deal with a pandemic, a once-in-a-generation pandemic, by putting forth a comprehensive plan. You think about the American Rescue Plan, what it was able to do, no Republican voted for that. And so we use that money to actually be in a different place than we are today. COVID is not over, but we are in a different place.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over.
There are more than 600 pieces of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation out there. A few hundred of them are anti-trans community. And that matters because we have to call that out. And we've never seen this level. It's historic in the number of pieces of legislation. And I've met a lot of parents of trans kids in the past couple of months who have told me these devastating stories, whether they're in Texas or Oklahoma or wherever they are, saying how they now have to seriously consider leaving their state to protect their child. And that's something that we have to call out and continue to be very clear about, that these are kids. These are our kids. They belong to all of us.
And secondly, the president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and the decision-making of why the president decided to invite his son.
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
Let me ask you this. If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors 2 days earlier?
A couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You could look at past presidents. I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
Can I follow up on that?
No, I just called in somebody. Go ahead.
Yeah. So Kirby wouldn't answer James's question, though. Are you going to answer the question? I mean, not a reasonable question to ask, whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of a coercive conversation for business dealings by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us?
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
Text message.
What I can tell you is I know that my colleague has dealt with this. He addressed this at the White House Counsel. I just don't have anything else to share. I just answered the question. I just answered the question.
Yes or no? Was the president involved in the shakedown attempt?
Stephen, I just answered the question. It's not up to you how I answer the question. I just answered the question by telling you my colleagues at the White House Counsel has dealt with this, and I would refer you to them. Go ahead.
Karine, can you just remind us what your colleague said from the White House Counsel so we have it?
I would refer you to them, and they will share their statement with all of you.
My question is about your statements from that podium. You've stated that the president stands by his comment from the 2020 campaign that he never once discussed his son's overseas business dealings with his son. And you stood at that podium and you reaffirmed that. Do you stand by your reaffirmation?
What I will say is nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. And I will leave it there. Anything else, I will refer you to the White House Counsel.
This is not a change?
I just answered the question. You just asked me, does my statement change? I just told you nothing has changed. That's answering the question. Go ahead.
Go ahead. The president was there 2 days prior.
Go ahead, Stephen. I'm calling on your colleague right now. Go ahead.
Thank you. To follow up on my colleague, is there anything that you can say with regard to this text message and what the president's son was alleging? Was the president there or not?
I would refer you to my colleagues at the White House Counsel. They have addressed this, and I refer you to them. Go ahead.
Karine, have you spoken to the president about this? Have you asked him whether he was there with his son on July 30th?
This is not a conversation that I've had with the president. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel.
Do you plan to have that conversation with the president?
No.
Did the president speak with the attorney general at all last night?
I cannot say if the president had a conversation with the attorney general last night. What I can refer you to is the White House Counsel's office as it relates to the allegations. They have already addressed this. This is something for them to deal with. I refer you to the Department of Justice on anything else if you don't want to speak to the White House Counsel's office.
And there was reporting earlier in the week that after the plea agreement was reached by Hunter Biden, that the president felt relieved that that part of it was behind him. Is that true? Can you speak to his mindset?
I can't speak to that. I cannot speak to the president's mindset. Again, I would refer you to the White House Counsel's office. And just to make sure we clear the record here, he tripped over a sandbag on the stage, and briefly he tripped and got up, and he got right back up and continued what he was there to do. He did not, there was no need for the doctor to see him as it was related to the fall, and he's doing fine. You saw, some of you saw him last night when he returned, getting off of Marine One on the South Lawn. He spoke to this, so I would refer you back to his comments, and so I'll just leave it there. And just to make sure we clear the record here, he tripped over a sandbag on the stage, and briefly he tripped and got up, and he got right back up and continued what he was there to do. Look, the president is the president, and the American people look to him for deliver on their behalf.
In a recent Gallup poll, 55% of people believe their financial situation is only fair or poor. Half say it's worsening. Fewer Americans, less than 2 in 3, have $400 squirreled away for an emergency.
Secondly, sorry to bring up cocaine again, but there was a question yesterday during the press gaggle with Andrew Bates that was, I guess, he said that he was avoiding it because of the Hatch Act.
One more, former President Trump has made some pretty wild posts recently on social media. One of them was that the cocaine found in the White House had belonged to either the president or his son. Are you willing to say that that's not the case, that they don't belong to them?
I don't have a response to that because we have to be careful about the Hatch Act. What I will say is that I have noticed there does seem to be some increasing frustration coming from that corner in general, and I think it is probably rooted in the contrast between their substantive policy records.
I'm just asking again, can you just say once and for all whether or not the cocaine belonged to the Biden family?
So, a couple of things there. He mentioned the Hatch Act because the question was posed to him using Donald Trump, and so he was trying to be very mindful. Okay, I hear you, but you're asking me a question, so I'm answering it for you. And so that's why he said the Hatch Act. So I would, have you read the transcript and read the transcript fully so you can see exactly what he was trying to say. So that's number one. So we're not avoiding the question. That is not true. We've answered this question, litigated this question for the last 2 days exhaustively. There has been some irresponsible reporting about the family, and so I got to call that out here. And I have been very clear. I was clear 2 days ago when talking about this over and over again as I was being asked a question. As you know, and media outlets reported this, the Biden family was not here. They were not here. They were at Camp David. They were not here Friday. They were not here Saturday. They were not here Sunday. They were not even here Monday. They came back on Tuesday. So to ask that question is actually incredibly irresponsible. And I'll just leave it there. Journalist or any journalist that is just trying to do their job, and so I just want to be very clear about that.
Discriminating against me for the past 9 months.
Stop. How is she discriminating against you?
No, she called on you. She just gave you a few questions.
If
I just need a question in 9 months.
Ask a question.
Please.
Go ahead,
allow me
Amra.
to do my job and ask my question. When you say that the journalists are being discriminated against,
If this continues, we're going to end the press briefing. If this continues, you're being incredibly rude. You're incredibly rude. You're being incredibly rude. You're talking over your colleague.
You're not applying.
You're talking over your colleague.
I'm not talking over the colleague.
Not just to the PRC, but to other countries all around the world. Now, what they do about this is going to be for them to speak to. All I can do is tell you what President Biden's focused on, and that's making sure, A, we're staying.
She's clearly acting secretary, and we are doing everything that we can during the budget negotiation to make those calls, to have conversations with senators on the Hill through. Catch you.
Karine,
To follow up on
what we are going to promise is that we're going to do this. We're going to move forward with this kind of system, this immigration system that has been gutted, really, truly gutted by the last administration. We're going to move forward and do it in a humane way. We're going to do it in a safe way, and we're going to do it in the way that moves us forward. And so what we have been seeing, what we've been dealing with, again, is trying to fix the damage that the last administration did. What we have done is we've opened the path to make sure that people have a way to get to come through and do it in a legal pathway.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the I'm talking about.
Yeah, thank you, Karine. What is the White House's reaction to environmental activists critical of the Biden administration's approval of the Willow Oil project?
President Biden is facing swift backlash from environmentalists over his approval of a massive oil drilling project in Alaska. Now, it's a major reversal after he promised no more drilling on federal lands while on the campaign trail in 2020.
Number one, no more subsidies for fossil fuel industry, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. Ends.
They argue that the president has undermined his own goals on climate change in approving this.
So a couple of things there. Look, the president, when it comes to, you're talking about the Willow project?
Yeah, the Willow Oil project.
Look, the president kept his word when where he can by law.
Even the president himself in a CNN town hall in Milwaukee last year questioned and actually laid out the limits of his authority. Listen to this.
I'm prepared to write off the $10,000 debt, but not 50.
Mr. President, let me ask you.
Because I don't think I have the authority to do it by sign of a pen.
Then Speaker Pelosi said this in 2001 about the limits, again, of what you can do without an act of Congress. Here she was.
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. That has to be an act of Congress.
She later said in 2022, actually, we do have this power. But you can see those are two key people in the administration and the then speaker saying there are limits to this authority, and that's the real legal question.
He can, by law, right? That is important to note. And as the Interior Department said, some of the company's leases are decades old, granted by prior administrations. The company has a legal right to those leases. The department's options are limited when there are legal contracts in place. For example, the DOI solicitor under President Clinton and law professor at U.S. Hastings said they have lease rights, and that can't be ignored. That's a big figure on the scale in the favor of development. And so I'll leave it there. But again, the president is delivering the most aggressive climate agenda in the U.S. history, and that is going to be his continued commitment to the American people.
And so is it the position of the White House that there was no other option other than approving the permits for the project?
Well, I just laid out there was legal right to, they had legal right to those leases, right? And the president's going to do what he can under the as the law permits. And so again, this is a president who's delivered on the most aggressive climate agenda in the U.S. history, and he's going to continue to do that. I have not spoken to the president today. Don't have a time or a date to preview at this time. I just don't have anything to share on that piece. I'm just going to not speak to that. Nothing has changed. I would have to look into that. I'm just not going to comment about the decision today.
Elizabeth Naftali. She's made more than a dozen visits here to the White House and met with some of the president's most senior advisors. Can you tell us a little bit more about those visits, why she was here?
I would have to look into that. I've not been tracking these visits that you're mentioning to me.
Months ago, you said that nothing has changed when you were asked about the president's previous remarks on his son's business dealings, but the language has in fact changed. So I just want to clear this up once and for all. The president has previously said that he has never discussed overseas business dealings with his son, but the White House now says that the president has never been in business with his son. So why the updated language? Which statement is true? Or is this semantics and they're both true?
As I stated on Monday, when I was asked this question multiple times, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed on this. Nothing has changed on this. And so could ask me a million different ways on this question. Nothing has changed.
A firearm illegally should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
So here I'm going to be, I think I know where this question is going, and I'm just going to continue to say, as it relates to the case that we're seeing in Delaware, I'm just going to not speak to that.
Can you give us an update when it comes to East Palestine? The president has said that he would go. He has not yet. And also, Governor Mike DeWine asked the president to issue a major disaster declaration a few weeks ago. Is that something the president is going to do? And if so, when?
So on your first question, the president intends to go. Don't have a time or a date to preview at this time. I have to look into the Governor DeWine's request. I have to check in with the team and I would also refer you to FEMA. I just don't have anything to share on that piece.
Have you seen the president since Hunter Biden showed up in federal court, since the deal fell apart? Did he have any reaction that he has agreed to allow you to share with us?
So I'll tell you this, and I'll repeat this as what I said at the top, which is the president loves his son. The president and the first lady love their son, and they support him as he's rebuilding his life and trying to move forward. I have not spoken to the president today. He has been busy continuing to work on behalf of the American people, as he does every day with internal meetings, and so I will leave it there.
The Federal Reserve has just announced an interest rate hike by a quarter point, which brings it to the highest level in 22 years. Does the White House have comment on that?
As you know, we see the Federal Reserve as being independent. We give them the space to make sure that they are able to make monetary decision. It is up to them to make that decision. I'm just not going to comment about the decision today.
That's about as Washington, D.C. as it gets.
We must be fearless to bulldoze through the obstacles that are placed in front of us. Congressional Democrats continue to do the trickle-down economics, which we know it doesn't work.
Good God, you're dumb.
All right, I'm going
You haven't called on me in 2 seasons, Karine.
And not calling on you today. Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, sir.
You should be ashamed
Go
of
ahead.
that.
Go ahead.
That shows
Go ahead.
disrespect to a free and
Go
independent
ahead.
media. It's black.
I'm
That's
gonna
one of our country's largest and most widely read newspapers, Karine. That shows contempt for a free and independent press.
Go ahead. I'm calling on somebody who I haven't called in a long time as well. Go ahead.
So the CBO yesterday said that the budget deficit totaled $1.7 trillion, which is an increase from $300 billion from last year. Why did the deficit increase if the U.S. economy is doing so well, as President Biden has said?
So a couple of things. As you know, the president has, when it comes to the deficit, he has done a record amount of work in reducing the deficit.
Pure fiction.
As you just laid out. One of the things that we have seen is that congressional Democrats continue to do the trickle-down economics, which we know it doesn't work, right? You've heard us call Meganomics, right? Because let's be honest, as women, as young women, we need to be fearless. To strive and thrive, we must be fearless to bulldoze through the obstacles that are placed in front of us every day. And that's doubly true for women of color, queer women, trans women, disabled women, and other oppressed women.
But people still hear Bidenomics and they see rent is up 7.4% year over year. Car repairs, car insurance is up almost 19%. So costs are not coming down for all Americans.
So here's the thing. As we know that when it comes to housing, people are still dealing with a lot, right? We understand how that economic hardship as it relates to housing specifically. That's why the president put forth a plan to deal with, on the federal level, how to help people lower costs with housing. So that is important as well. But when you think about wages are indeed up, which matters.
Although wages have slipped a little bit above inflation in the last month, for 22 of the last 24 months, wages are behind the rate of inflation. And what that means, Sandra, is that the average family today is about $5,000 poorer today than they were when Joe Biden came into office.
This is a president that has taken historic action on an issue, on a system that has been broken for some time.
And this won't come as welcome news to the White House, but CBP sources confirmed to Fox News just moments ago that the total number of migrant encounters this fiscal year 2023 have surpassed last year's record-breaking numbers.
So what do you call it here at the White House when 10,000 people illegally cross the border in a single day?
So what do you call it Peter, when GOP put forth wait, no, you can't.
Karine?
I'm answering. Okay, we're gonna move
You're
on.
answering
No,
the question with a question? Okay.
no, we're moving on.
Karine,
Moving.
please.
In the back. Go ahead.
You said you were
Go
stopping
ahead,
the
in
flow
back.
at the border.
No.
10,000
I tried to
migrants.
answer, Peter. I
Okay.
tried to answer the question. You stopped me. Let's go. So,
How many people coming into this country illegally is enough for President Biden then?
say that last one.
How many people illegally coming into the United States is enough for President Biden's administration?
Enough for what?
5.9 million people have been encountered illegally.
I know the numbers, but enough for what?
Enough just to stop the flow.
As I mentioned, this is a problem that's been around for some time now, for decades. A broken system.
There was footage yesterday of Border Patrol cutting some of the razor wire that Texas had installed. Governor Abbott has vowed to reinstall it. They have his border czar has pictures of people taking fresh razor wire out to the border to reinstall it. Is there now a federal policy of removing the barriers that Texas is installing?
So here's what I'll say. I would have to look into that. I did see those reports yesterday, but as it relates to Governor Abbott, we know what he has done these past couple of years while this president has been in office. He's turned this, when it comes to the border, he's turned this into a political stunt, and that's what he's done over and over again.
The president and Dr. Biden, they decided to put me in this position. They decided that they wanted Karine Jean-Pierre, with all of the things, all the communities that I represent, clearly being a Black person, right? Being a Black woman. They said, we want you to represent us.
Right.
We want you to represent the White House. We want to meet this moment that we're in. And we know that you are beyond capable of doing that, right? You are experienced, and you are the voice that we want to have. So knowing that, Stacey, knowing that I am representing the voice of the president, then I have to do that.
Right.
I mean, that's the job. I'm a historic figure.
I won't say who the journalist's name is, but someone said, she never calls on me.
No.
But what's the protocol? I mean,
Okay.
you do look around, right?
I do look around, and here's the thing. I tell people, come see me.
Right.
Come see me.
Right.
Come make it a
well, and isn't that one of those things?
And get to know me, because what tends to happen, I call on people that I don't know, but it's always your brain, right? Just automatically. There are 50 plus people in the room. Cool. You're going to be like, okay, I know you. Go ahead, ask your question. Or you want to have a person. You also want to know the person that you're calling, because you also want to give people like, oh, this is so and so, and calling on them now. I always tell people, we tell them all the time, if you feel that you're not being called on, it probably because I don't
know you.
This works. I should say that our conversation back in the back. I should call you out. I'm going to time you out.
Tell us more. She probably will.
I don't know. Wasn't sure if you knew Taylor Swift. I know. All right.
Apparently she's dating a football player.
Yes.
What we saw last week, affirmative action, again, taking away important constitutional rights.
I don't think that means what you think it means.
That have been in place for a long time. Let's not forget this, the president was, when he was a senator, he was the chair of the Judiciary Committee. He is an expert on this. He understands how this works. A lot of these unprecedented decisions that this SCOTUS has made, they have been held up in the past by Republicans, by Democrats, right? All of these things are part of Bidenomics. All of these things are part of what the economic policy that the president has put forward. And let's not forget, when he walked into the administration, the economy was at a free fall.
Yeah.
And I love it. You said it at the top, the receipts, right? The Bidenomics is working. It is actually working. You see that in a jobs report.
Just 34% of Americans approve of Biden's handling of the economy in a recent AP poll that was released at the end of June. And only 20% of voters believe the nation is on the right track.
And so I just want to continue to do that, continue to grow, continue to make sure I am communicating effectively. And I want to say one last thing. It is truly an honor and a privilege to be where I am. It is truly an honor and privilege to be speaking for this president because of everything that I have gone through and everything that I represent. I'm a historic figure.
Any idea how long you'll stay?
I'm going to stay as long as the president wants me to stay. I work at the privilege of the president of the United States. And as I said, it's an honor and a privilege. And I'm not planning to go anywhere anytime soon.
Is this White House going to do something in response to the ruling? And if so, what?
So I don't have anything to preview for you at this time, Ari, but what I can say is...
I'll interrupt to make a quick joke. Now I feel like I'm at the White House
I know, the briefing room. I don't have anything to preview.
In the briefing room? You're in the briefing room? Well, I don't have anything on that. I know, but we want something like that. That's not funny.
Is the United States considering pulling from its own stocks to send to Ukraine without replenishing them? Or is the aid package that we expect to come in the next week or so the final one until Congress gives the United States more authority?
I mean, look, we've been very clear. There's one more final aid that we can give to Ukraine.
If the United States doesn't replenish its own stocks.
Look, what I can tell you is we're doing, one of the reasons why we ask for additional aid is because we're running out, right? We are running out of aid to support the brave people of Ukraine. And we have, what we've been able to do, and you've heard this from the Admiral, you've heard this from the National Security Advisors, we have kind of lessened, like made that aid that we've announced the last couple of weeks or last couple of months smaller and smaller because we don't have any more. Like, this is it.
Tragic.
I understand you don't want to negotiate from the podium, but can you tell the American people if there's any immigration policy that this White House is willing to talk about and is working on with Republicans?
So I want to be really careful as negotiations happen. We don't want to do this in the public, right? It does not help the process. And so we want to make sure that those negotiations are happening. Obviously, we're part of those negotiations with the senators. We think it's going in the right direction.
You started talking about accomplishments from this last year. You talked about the economy. But in our latest ABC News poll back in November, by a 10-point margin, Americans still said that they would trust Republicans on the economy more. So what is your message to Americans who just think what you've done on the economy is not enough?
Look, we understand what Americans have gone through. We do. They went through, and you've heard me say this many times before, and my other colleagues, coming out of the pandemic was a tough time, a difficult time for so many Americans. And we understand it's going to take some time for them to feel the accomplishments and what we've been able to do in the last 3 years. We make an effort to do a press conference as often as possible, whether it's here at home or abroad.
Pure fiction.
And what we're seeing here at the border, the migration flow, increased migration flow, certainly it ebbs and flows.
Into the cocaine at the White House, the Secret Service indicated if they're closer to...
Yeah, I don't have any updates. As you know, as you just mentioned, Secret Service is under their purview. They're certainly investigating the situation. I just don't have anything updated. I would refer you to the Secret Service on that particular question.
What's the status of the F-16s going to Ukraine and the training for the Ukrainian pilots?
I don't have anything more than what we've shared on that in the past. I'm just not going to share anything, any more details on that. Just don't have anything new on that.
Level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel?
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. I know there's been always questions about credible threats, and so just want to make sure that that's out there. But look, Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks. And certainly President Biden understands that many of our Muslim, Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones and neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities. And that is something you heard the president speak to in his address just last Thursday.
The polls that show that the electorate at large and also significant majorities within the Democratic Party believe that the president is too old.
Biden's age and fitness for office, almost 3 out of 4 in our poll. This is Democrats, Republicans, independents say it's a major or moderate concern for them.
The polls that show the American people and also significant majorities within the Democratic Party don't want him to run again.
In a CNN poll this week, nearly 7 in 10 Democrats said the party should nominate, quote, a different candidate than Joe Biden.
And the polls that show his handling of the economy.
Americans overwhelmingly say they are not feeling good about the economy and that the president is to blame. Just 30% approve of his performance on the economy, a career low.
49% bad, 26% good in terms of how people feel about Bidenomics.
President Biden's rating on handling inflation and higher prices is underwater by 40 points.
Biden is mostly part of the problem or the solution. Overall, 61% said he's part of the problem. Look at this breakdown here. Obviously, 95% of Republicans say he's part of the problem. 2/3 of independents, 67%, say in dealing with the nation's issues, Biden is mostly part of the problem. And 1/4 of Democrats.
Foreign policy.
On foreign policy, 33% approve of Joe Biden's job performance.
All of these dismal polls, his job approval ratings.
Biden's approval rating is 39% in our poll, 61% disapprove of the job he's doing.
President Biden, what is his job approval rating? We measure it now at 40%, with 57% disapproving. The significance, that is the lowest President Biden has ever measured in our poll.
Men, 63% disapproval. Voters under 45, 62%. Hispanic voters, 60%. College degree, 57%. Black voters, 41% disapproval.
Does the White House have any basis to challenge the accuracy of that polling?
I'm not challenging the accuracy here. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm saying to you is that, we're not going to change the minds of Americans. I get that. Americans are going to feel how they feel, and we're going to respect that. And I've said that many times from here. Many times. I said that moments ago. What I can tell you is what our perspective is. What I can tell you is how we see things. What I can speak to is how we see this, what our perspective is. Our perspective is that it's not about age, it's about the president's experience. That's what we believe. And it's, as they say, the proof is in the pudding.
The new data shows Americans are digging themselves deeper into credit card debt, which is now hitting an all-time high.
Overall inflation is up nearly 16% from January 2021 when Biden took office to last month. Grocery prices also up nearly 20%.
Last I looked, 1.62 trillion deficit for the first 10 months of this fiscal year. Unbelievable. And interest on the debt this fiscal year, 10 months in, is already up 15.5%. 15.5%.
We've got uncertain economic conditions that you talked about, heavy debt loads, and that's contributed to the highest level of bankruptcies in 13 years.
Is it the view of the president's communications team that he is equally adept in all settings in terms of communications, or are there some that play to greater strengths, some where he probably isn't as strong, etc.?
I will tell you this, the president is the best communicator that we have in the White House.
The rapidly rising bridge over the Holly River. Look, in Washoe County in Nevada.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
We choose science over fiction. We choose truth over facts.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
It's estimated that 200 million people have died, probably by the time I finish this talk.
You're gonna have travel bans. You're gonna not be able to have economic intercourse around the world.
I am very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental as well as my mental fitness.
I see you next year.
I hope not.
We don't want to do this in the public, right?